My name is Modupe Taylor Pearce. I am a scholar and practitioner of organizational development and leadership, which is to say that I am a nerd when it comes to business and what makes companies run. I love figuring out what makes people become excellent at taking resources and turning that into productive services or a product. My specialty is in leadership, and in this realm, I serve as the CEO of an organization called Breakfast Club Africa, which is an organization dedicated to supporting chief executive officers to becoming better leaders. We do that by providing amazing learning experiences in the form of peer learning and executive coaching. And specifically, we are focused on African CEOs because we recognize that African CEOs have a particular need that has not been met, which is the need to find ways to grow so that they can then allow their companies to grow. And this is something that hasn't been met. It is being met in Western countries, but in Africa, our CEOs, when they become CEOs, everybody assumes that they know what to do. And that could not be further from the truth. And we support them by creating learning experiences so that they grow and their companies are also able to grow.
So what is the Breakfast Club Africa?
So Breakfast Club Africa is a company that's registered in Mauritius, and what it is a membership organization. So CEOs join for a membership fee, and once they become members, they are invited to participate in periodic, usually monthly, peer learning meetings. They also receive coaching as well. And they also get discounts to our flagship event, which is the Made in Africa Leadership Conference, which is a learning conference for CEOs from all over Africa. And what it does is it provides for a CEO access to the knowledge or the resource that you need in order to help your company to grow exponentially.
And tell us about this conference. Where is it and when?
The Made in Africa Leadership Conference this year will be held virtually. We had planned it originally to be happening in Accra, but with the current pandemic, rather than postponing or canceling, we believe that at this time, it is even more crucial for CEOs to have access to what they need to make wise decisions. And we were not about to leave our CEOs in the lurch in the midst of a pandemic just because we couldn't meet face to face. So we are having a virtual conference from June 16 to June 19. And over 300 CEOs from all over Africa are going to register and gather virtually and learn from each other what they need to learn in order to help their companies grow. So we've got a dizzying array of learning experiences, over 24 of them scheduled over the 4 days. And what the CEOs can do is they get to pick which topics are relevant to them. And those are the topics and the sessions that they will attend. And at the end of the conference, they would have acquired the knowledge that they need in order to solve the problems that they're experiencing today in their companies so that their companies can grow exponentially.
Yeah, that is actually my next question is about the growth challenges for African companies. What are those challenges and how do you address that?
Well, the challenges today are different from what they were in many industries 6 months ago or 12 months ago. Fundamentally, Johann, every business exists, every successful business exists because it solves a problem for somebody. Your business in terms of BRICS TV exists because people have a problem. They need to be informed about what's happening. And so they come to you and utilize your service because it will solve that problem. If you solve it very well, they will pay for it. If you don't solve it very well, they will not. Now, the same thing happens for every business. What is currently happening in Africa is that with the pandemic, people's problems are changing. The same people that may have had a problem here now decide that either that problem is no longer a priority, or they now have new problems that they decide, I need this solved first. And when a company struggles, it is because their market has changed and the value proposition that they are providing is not commensurate with whatever they're charging. And this is happening all over the world. In some cases, the value proposition becomes even better. So for example, if you were running Skype or Zoom company, then you find out that people have now prioritized your service. And so you are growing even more because the value proposition has changed for the better. Other companies, other industries have different challenges. And in Africa, what is happening is that when this change happens, it is key that the companies are willing to change, that they're willing to relook at their value proposition, their business model, who they're serving in order to adjust. Because those who adjust quickly with the rate of change are the ones who will thrive and survive. And those who refuse to adjust are going to be remaining in the annals of history.
The trade agreement in Africa, the free trade agreement, and opportunities there. Let's talk about opportunities there, and also let's do a little focus also on film, movies, entertainment, and the creative industries.
Well, the Africa Free Trade Agreement was and is a wonderful signal to business to understand that we have what we need in Africa for our companies to grow. Everything that we need in Africa is already here. We have the resources, we have the capital, we have the market, okay? And what we just need to do is to tap into that. It is amazing to me that Africa is importing so much of what we consume when we also produce certain things. And so what this trade agreement is really facilitating is that it facilitates business people to look into Africa for their solutions. Why is it that Rwandan coffee can only be found in Rwanda and in Kenya and maybe in South Africa? Why is it that it cannot be found in Nigeria or Sierra Leone or Egypt? Because when you go to those countries and you look for coffee, oftentimes it's coffee that's made in Europe and in other countries. And these are opportunities for Africa today, because as we look at the world and we realize that supply chains are being interrupted, China didn't have to sign a trade agreement with Zambia in order for them to be able to bring things to Zambia. This trade agreement is a catalyst. Now, in specific to the entertainment industry, which is certainly being hit by headwinds, and specifically in the film industry, there is also opportunity. The African film industry has been challenged with competing with Western film industries for decades. And these are opportunities because now people with their stay-at-home orders, lockdowns, etc., are watching more television. And here's a wonderful opportunity for them to be able to access African film industry. But the key is that they're not going to watch the films just because they're Africans. They're going to watch the films because they speak to their need. And what is the need right now for people? There's certainly entertainment. There's also comfort. Okay, why do people watch films? Why do people, and there's also education, which is another area of great opportunity that the film industry can tap into, because that's something that Western film industries cannot do as effectively as African film industries, is produce product that not only entertains, but also educates.
One last question. before we leave it to you to add something, is your view on the potential for African countries following, well, which is inevitable, a new economy that we're seeing after the lockdown and after the coronavirus pandemic. People are talking about a new economy that's going to emerge from this, from the ashes. What is your view on this? What kind of potential is there for new
Johann,
business?
there is huge potential for Africa in this new economy. Uh, in many ways, the corona pandemic and the change that it's going to bring is an opportunity. But like many opportunities, it requires somebody to grab it. And those somebodies are African CEOs. If we insist on doing business as usual, then we may become dinosaurs. But if we challenge ourselves and our teams to look at the changes and to see the opportunities that are inside there, then we can actually overtake our Western competition. We can have our services being provided across the continent. For example, in the area of education, there are loads of Africans who are getting education from Western institutions, and that has been interrupted. There's an opportunity now for education to go online, and there are African institutions that can do that. So stop looking at just the people in your township and your country. You can provide the service. You can actually acquire your supply chain from other countries in Africa. That's the challenge for African CEOs, and to look at who can be their market, not just who is their market, but who can be their market. In the area of healthcare, we've already seen it with people producing their own masks and hand sanitizers, etc. It's crazy that most of our pharmaceuticals and our healthcare disposables are imported from China, from Europe. When we have the raw materials, this is an opportunity for us to take full advantage of it and to grow those industries and to supply our neighbors. Recently, we've had situations where Madagascar is shipping coronavirus cure to Senegal and to other countries. Okay, and I'm not commenting on whether those things that cure works, because I'm not a scientist, but these are opportunities for us to find new markets. The same thing applies even in tourism. Many hotels, many places are suffering because most of their market came from the West, came from North America. At the same time, there are a whole load of Africans who go to Disneyland, Disney World, and do tourism in other countries. Why not attract them, create packages, attract that African customer so that we can do more business with each other? There are huge opportunities, Johann, but like any opportunity, they will not come and hit us in the face. We have to open our eyes. We have to be willing to change. We have to be ready to do what it takes to mine those opportunities, both in the market and also in the supply chain. And this is the next few months is going to determine whether Africa sees what is already projected, which is a 10 to 15% decline in GDP, or whether Africa actually experiences a 20 to 30% growth in GDP. Both are within our grasp, and both will depend on what African CEOs choose to do and have the courage to implement.
Also, your comment on the fourth industrial revolution and the embrace of that. Are we not doing enough there?
It's hard to say, to make a blanket statement about the entire continent and what we're doing enough. The good news about the fourth industrial revolution as it's related to the pandemic is that we no longer are in a position where we can choose as to whether to embrace it or not. It's coming, it's hitting us. And so, whereas before, one could say that Africa was slow to pick up on digitalization, today we are being pushed into it. I have an 86-year-old father who is on Zoom and use tools like that, something that he wouldn't have considered a year ago, but today, because otherwise he cannot be able to access people, he has to learn that. This is a reality. Now, we can choose to be dragged into that. And then the next stage is, how do we mine opportunities inside there? And that for me is the challenge that I want every African CEO to grab hold of, is that not only are there threats in this pandemic, but there are opportunities in it, along with the Industrial Revolution. And just like any Industrial Revolution, the people who embrace the change and look for opportunities are the ones who come out of it looking very good. And those that keep yearning back to the way it was and to how good it was are the ones that become the dinosaurs that we read about in history. What is going to be our choice? We African CEOs have a great opportunity to do this. There's nothing that great about the way things were. We need to look ahead and embrace this industrial revolution so that the children of Africa can have a future. And this is what the Made in Africa Leadership Conference will support African CEOs to do in June 16 to 19 this year.